let me switch on my camera briefly for the people who don't know me. Hello there. So my name is Maxim de Witte. I'm the business development manager, mainly responsible for Africa, Asia, some countries in Europe. So I think a few people who joined this webinar already know me. I also see a lot of new names. So for the people who I've never met, nice to meet you. So thank you for joining this webinar. So we will talk about our latest HDMI streamer. So I will do this through a presentation and also a live demo. So let's start. I will switch off my camera. No need to look at me all the time. Let's start. Okay, so maybe some house rules first. So all your microphones are muted, so nobody can interrupt me. Of course, you can ask your questions. So in the GoToWebinar panel, you have there the question, I would say, area. So you can just enter your questions there, and I will reply to them at the end of the webinar. So HDMI made easy. Let me explain you how we do that. So the product number is the 8210, just for your reference. So this is for this webinar. So it's I will start with some general information, then I will talk a bit about the use cases. It's a very useful product, but sometimes people, they don't know for what they can use it, so I will give some examples. I will explain a bit about the hardware and also give you some basic configuration and also some advanced IDs or configuration IDs that could be useful. And then I will give you a quick live demo, and at the end we can do the Q&A session. So our HDMI streamer, it's a hardware. It's of course a physical product. It's very useful for small to medium-sized projects where you want to stream HD video and audio on an easy way on the local network or on the internet. So it's a very flexible tool that gives you real-time video, and you can easily watch it on any device, a smartphone, a tablet, a laptop, a smart TV. So basically anything with an IP input and a web browser can be used. So it's really plug and play. You don't need much IT knowledge. You just need to know the basics. So, and you will be good. So you can of course find some information on our website if you want to look at the product details or at the leaflet or the user manual. So you can always afterwards download it from there. So what is the advantage? So it's a small device. So it's an all-in-one. So basically you don't need any additional software. So you can just buy the product, plug it in, configure it, and you're good to go. So basically it will take any HDMI source, can be a media player, and camera, CCTV camera, a laptop, a PC, a video player. So every device, any device which has an HDMI output can be connected. And then the output of this device, of course, you put on the Ethernet network, but it could be a physical network with physical cables, but also Wi-Fi, or you can even stream it on the public internet. And as I already mentioned before, you can watch basically the stream on any device. So any device which basically has a web browser, you can watch the video. You can also use third-party video players or hardware players like IP set-top box. Also, this can be used to watch the video. So it's a multi-standard. So it's doing multicast and unicast. For multicast, it's UDP and RTP. Unicast is the M3U, HLS, Rtmp, HTTP. For the people who are not so familiar with IP, this may be a bit too detailed, but just for the people who are familiar, for your information. And also the device can be used to stream to video sharing platforms. Everybody knows YouTube and Facebook, so you can also easily stream to these platforms in case you want to reach an unlimited audience all over the world. So a few use cases. So we have around 8 cases. These are typical applications or applications that we know some of our customers is using our product for. So the first one, I think, is very common. It's in hospitality, so for IPTV. The second one use case we always explain is like everywhere people have to wait or are relaxing, like a bus stop, public transport, a waiting room, a bar, restaurant. The third use case is remote school or religious services, if you want to broadcast that to your community, or if you want to the world, you can use YouTube and Facebook. A very popular application, I think this is the most common application, is digital signage. And also it can be used, for instance, surveillance cameras to share information with emergency or field service people, which are in the field, of course, and public transport entertainment. So let me go to the first use case, which is maybe for the people who are familiar with streaming or HDMI streaming. I think this is one of the most typical use cases. So for instance, this is a basic setup in a hotel where they have an IPTV solutions. Sometimes they use headends if they want to capture TV channels from satellite, terrestrial, cable, doesn't matter, they use a headend. But often a hotel also has like an information channel where he wants to make some advertising about his restaurant or the hotel or the wellness facilities. So in that case, they have like a media player running their promotional video, and then you can use our HDMI streamer to basically add this source, this information channel source on the network. And then in most cases, it's the first channel that comes up when they start the TV. So that's a typical application. So this is basically we use standard UDP multicast streaming because, of course, you stream it to a large number of TVs, and multicast is ideal for that, to not overflow your network. The second use case is everywhere people have to wait or relax. So basically, for instance, a bar, restaurant, waiting rooms in the hospital, with the doctor, at the town hall, anywhere people have to wait, or also maybe bus stops. If you want to provide some entertainment there, it's possible. So here the setup we have here is for a small audience, up to 30 people. I mentioned this because this means that we don't use like a video sharing platform. Basically, everything is all the streaming is done locally, and up to 30 people can simultaneously connect to our HDMI streamer and watch the content. There is, of course, a limitation, because every time somebody makes a connection, a new stream is set up, because in this case we use a unicast, because often we use a wireless router, the Wi-Fi, to distribute the signal. And of course, so with every connection, every user who is watching the video, a new connection is made, and this is using resources. So there's a limit to the number of simultaneous connections. So it's between 1, of course, and 30, depends a bit on how you configure the unit. But this could be a nice application. So anybody, if you have an information channel or a media channel, you can just connect it to our HDMI streamer, and you connect the streamer to your Wi-Fi or your network. Then the only thing you have to share with your guests or travelers is the address, host name or IP address. I will come to that later, and they are good to go. They can just watch the content which is connected to the device. So another application is very popular nowadays with this corona pandemic, so is remote school. So in the lockdown, people are not allowed to travel, cannot go to the religious service or to school, or people are sick at home. So you can also use our streamer for that. For instance, the example I show you here in the drawing is a school. So you have the teacher giving classes, and often nowadays they have like an overhead projector or a big screen. So basically this computer, this image, you can easily connect to our HDMI streamer, and you connect it to the internet. And in this setup, because the audience is also not so big, we can use port forwarding. So again, we don't use like YouTube. People can directly connect to the HDMI streamer because they are at home connected to the internet. We cannot directly connect to the streamers directly, so we need to use port forwarding. I will explain that in the next coming slide in the advanced configuration, but this is a typical setup which is easily doable with our streamer. And as I mentioned before, if you really want to reach a big audience, unlimited audience basically, then you can also use our streamer, but then you don't stream, the people do not connect directly to our streamer, but they connect to YouTube. And basically we will stream the content to YouTube, and it's basically YouTube who will distribute it and multiply it to the world. And there's no limit on the number of people who can connect. So that's a really good application if you want to reach a huge amount of, or if you don't want to have a limitation in the number of people watching. This is done through Rtmp. This is mainly the protocol which is used, or HTTP. These are the two protocols which are used for this setup. I will also give some more explanation on how do you do this setup in the next coming slides. So the fifth use case is digital signage. As I mentioned before, I think this is one of the most common applications where our streaming is used for. People who are familiar with digital signage, these are the typical TVs you see in a shop, in a mall, in a restaurant, where they want to, of course, promote or share information like the price list, or they want to promote some meals or products. Often what they do is they have several TVs hanging on different corners of the shop, and in many cases they put like a digital signage media player behind every TV. So for every TV you have, they put this media player, but often the same information is shared. For instance, in a big shop, in every corner of the shop or in the restaurant, they show the same information. So then in that case, it's not really necessary to buy a media player for every TV. Basically, you can just use one media player, digital signage media player, connected to our HDMI streamer, and you just stream it directly to the TV. Of course, there's one requirement. It should be a smart TV with an Ethernet interface, which can, of course, receive IP streams and decode them, display them. Maybe also important to mention, many smart TVs nowadays, they have a wireless network interface. So even if you want to add or put up an additional TV, but unfortunately you don't have any network cable or coax cable or HDMI cable going to the place or the corner where you want to hang the new TV, you could easily stream the content using your Wi-Fi. So it's a very easy way. If the HDMI streamer is already connected to your network and your network has Wi-Fi, you can just enter the IP address or host name and the image will be there. So no cabling required anymore, no drilling, and so on. Very easy. The next use case is a surveillance camera. So in many parts of the world, they have like these gated communities, or even at home you can use it if you have cameras around the house. Often they come with like a PVR. This is a recorder, so you have multiple cameras, in most cases also IP cameras. they record. So these streams are recorded on the PVR, and then this often you have a big TV, a big screen connected to this device where you can watch like all your cameras in the mosaic. Of course, if you want to share this, for instance, with all the people, all the owners or all the people living in the community, you can put it, if there is a local network available, you can put also the camera footage on the local network, and everybody can watch it basically as long as they are connected to the network. Of course, they can watch the cameras. Also a useful application. So the second last one is emergency services, maybe not so typical. Like the fire brigade, police, or just service engineers who go on site. Often, like big organizations, they have like a control room or a help desk where they like monitor stuff. And if you want to share information as a help desk operator with your colleagues in the field, you can also use our streamer for that. So basically, let's imagine that the screen on the left here, if you connect this to our streamer, there's also an HDMI output, so you can connect the output again to the display so that, of course, the operator can also see the image. But then if you do this, then the colleagues or the service people in the field, they can easily access our streamer, again, for instance, via port forwarding. I would not use YouTube for that, of course, because maybe it's a bit more sensitive information. But this way you can easily share as a control room operator information with the colleagues in the field. So that's another possible application. And the last one I want to explain is public transport. For instance, the long haul buses. Yeah? So in many parts of the world where they don't have a decent train network, they use buses to travel from one city to the other. There is also a very nice application. Most of these buses, they have an overhead TV. In old buses, only one. In the recent buses, they have multiple, but still, if you're unlucky and you're seated not in the good position to watch the TV, can be annoying. So also, if you add our HDMI streamer, so between the media player and the overhead TV, and often nowadays, these buses, they also offer a Wi-Fi. Yeah, because people want to be entertained during the ride. So often the Wi-Fi router is already there. So if you put our HDMI streamer in between the media player and the TV, you connect it to the Wi-Fi router, then the people can easily watch the movie or the information, because it can also be used for sightseeing buses, for instance. You can easily watch this on your smartphone, on your own, or your tablet or your laptop. So you have a very clear view, and image and audio quality is perfect. So also a very nice use case. So this brings us to the end of the different use cases. So of course the applications is not limited to the use cases I explained. Maybe there are others. We are always interested to know which use cases or for which applications you use our device. So you can always share it with us. So then maybe we can add it for the next webinar. So the next session, I will talk about the hardware. Only one slide, there's nothing much to mention. So as you can see, it's a quite small device. So 15 centimeters by 15 centimeters high. So it's not so big. So it can easily fit in a small place, like in a bus. Of course, you don't have much space to put a lot of hardware there. So you only put our small HDMI streamers. For sure, there's room enough to put the device like this. And then the physical connectors, okay, it's powered. You need some external power adapter to power it. There's the power indicator light, of course. And then you have two HDMI connectors. One is the input, one is the output. So on the input, you connect your source, your HDMI source. And in case you also want to display it locally on a screen, you can connect your screen to the HDMI output. So basically, it's just a looped cue. And this LED in the middle is the signal lock. So when the HDMI cable is connected and our device detects a signal, then this LED will turn green, saying that, okay, I discovered signal and I recognize the timing, everything is okay, turns green. And of course, you have an Ethernet output, and then this you can connect to your network, of course. Also important to say that our product is designed to be used 24/7, so it runs continuously compared to some other devices in the market, often similar devices from Asia, which are more consumer-grade devices. They will, in most cases, not keep on running. So ours is designed to run 24/7. So it's an important remark. So now we will go into the configuration. I will briefly explain the basic configuration. I will not go too much in detail. Everything is explained in the user manual. I will spend more time on the advanced configurations, like some nice tricks and tools, how you can easily use the product. So the device is configured through an internal web interface. I can give you already a demo. So this is one of the units which I use for the live demo. So I use port forwarding. If you can see it here. So it has a number of menu. It has a menu here on the left, the hardware serial number, hardware version, software version, the uptime. So you see this one is already running for almost 80 days continuously. The temperature, CPU loads, the traffic, 2 megabits per second, CPU speed, not so important. So you have the network settings. People who are familiar with IP, it's very recognizable, of course, the host name and the IP address. In this case, it's a static IP address, but you can also have a dynamic IP address if you have a DHCP server or a router connected to it. Login, you can make it password protected. If necessary, updates, okay. You can update the firmware, you can do a factory reset, and you can reboot the device. Not so important. Let's go to the HDMI input. So here you can see that it's locked, the green check mark. This also means that the LED, the physical LED, is lighting green. And this is the video format, 1080p at 60 frames per second. And you give it a name. You can give your source a name. This is the digital signage player which is connected. And then you have some parameters. I will not go into too much detail. In most cases, you can just leave the default settings. So it's an H.264 encoder. Maybe the most important parameter is this, is the video bitrate in kilobytes per second. So you can set it from 500 kilobytes per second to 1000. So from 0.5 megabits per second to 20 megabits per second. It's important to understand that the higher the bitrate, the better the image quality, but of course, the more bandwidth it will use. For a physical network, you can go quite high. For a wireless network, maybe it's better to not go too high. Otherwise, it will flood the network too much. Like in my case, I set it to 2 megabits per second, which is more than enough. And then you have the IP output. So this gives you the bandwidth, 2 megabits per second. As I mentioned, you can do multicast streaming, UDP. Then this is you can enter the multicast address and the port number. Rtmp settings. This is what you need to use or fill in when you want to stream to YouTube. For instance, this is the string you have to enter. I have an additional slide on that later on. If you want to stream to YouTube, which is enabled now because it's part of the live demo. The show in the web interface. So what does it mean? So here you have live stream. If you go to the live stream, then you see the stream in this web interface. So if you just browse to the web page by default, you will get this. If you want to go into the administration, take the IP address or host name, and you put admin behind it. And then additional hosts. Now you can see there's only one. So this is the one source connected, but I could add multiple sources. I will also explain that later on. And this is done in the additional host. So you can add IP addresses of other HDMI streamers, and then the sources will be combined. So let me go to a live stream. So here you have the live streaming. It's like a thumbnail. I take some snapshots. If you click on it, then it will open the video. So this is a PC I have connected to it, where I run like a digital signage video in VLC. Of course, if you want, you can put it full screen. So, but I just want to show this is a PC, so it's running now live in my web browser. So let's go back to the presentation. So this is the basic configuration. Now the advanced configuration. So I have 6 slides on that. So one is local network streaming. So where we stream the content on a local network. The second one is internet streaming, and there we have 2 options, using port forwarding or using Rtmp streaming. Then you can also watch the video stream not only in a web browser, but also in a media player, software or hardware. Demonstrate the VLC as an example, but you can also do it with like an IP set-top box. Here I will show you how you combine multiple channels on one web page. And the last one is not really configuration, but it's very useful. For instance, if you want to share the address, the IP address or the host name of, maybe it's not so handy, so you can use QR code for that. I will also explain that in a minute. So local streaming, or LAN, it's local access network streaming. So this is the local network, so this means you're not on the internet. And there are 2 ways to access basically your content or the HDMI streamer is through the host name. Sometimes it's easy. You can make it easy name that you can easily remember, or you can also use, of course, the IP address. So these are 2 ways, and this you can find in the the network configuration page. So the host name is there, or the IP address is there. And then if you browse, as I demonstrated just earlier, then you can watch the video on your web browser. The second configuration is internet streaming, and this is through port forwarding. This is already maybe a bit technical for people who are not familiar with IP, but basically it's not so difficult. So you can access your web browser, the HDMI streamer from the internet directly through port forwarding. If you look, this is not a local IP address, this is a public IP address. And this is a specific port number. So basically every command which is sent to this IP address and port number will be forwarded to the HDMI streamer. So how do you know your public IP address? Very easy. You can just go to whatsmyip.org, or there are many websites, other websites that can give you that. You go there and then it says what your public IP address is. Basically, this is the IP address of your modem, your internet modem, which is connected to the outside world. So, but this is the IP address that you need to remember or need to use. So it's used there. And then port forwarding is configured in your modem or your router. So every modem or router has this option. And there you configure, you choose a port number, you're free to choose. And then basically you mention every command which is received on this port number is forwarded to this IP address. And basically this is the IP address of the HDMI streamer. So this combined enables your port forwarding. And now if this is set up this way, then you can access your HDMI streamer from the internet. So here you see the same, the web browser where I can watch my video, but it's not the local IP address or host name, it's the public IP address with the port number. It's very easy. It's not so difficult to set up. Maybe the first time it will be a bit, have to look for it, but it's quite straightforward. Maybe more easy if you want to stream on the internet, and especially if you want to stream to a very large audience, is to use like YouTube. In that case, for instance, in the example here, you have to create, of course, a YouTube studio. You have to register, create an account, your personal account, and then you will get like the Rtmp settings. This is a URL address and also a unique key. And basically this information you have to enter in the Rtmp settings of the HDMI streamer. So you take the URL and you put it, you start with the URL, and then afterwards you put the key. So basically here it's a combination of these two. You enable, you press apply, and you're good to go. So then you can, you will of course also get a unique link, YouTube link. And if you go there or you go to your own YouTube channel, then you will see your content. And this you can then, basically the whole world can see. Or you can limit it. You can also limit it on YouTube. And the next configuration, you can also, if you don't want to watch the content in a web browser, but you want to watch it on VLC or any other software player or set-top box, physical player, you can also do that. I will demonstrate here VLC. There are two possibilities. So you can use unicast streaming. In that case, you have to use this URL string. So this is the IP address of the HDMI streamer, and then you have to put this behind. And this you copy into the, if you go to media, open, then you just copy the string in there and you press play. Or if you use multicast streaming, then this is the address. So with the multicast address and the port number, and this you also put in the same location and you press play. So these are two ways that you can watch your video in VLC, for instance. Now the fifth configuration, as I already basically explained it, if you have one device, one HDMI streamer, you go to the live streaming page, then you get this, only one. Of course, if you would combine multiple units together, it would be very annoying for the people to watch, who wants to watch the different content, is that they always have to change addresses. So that's quite annoying. Therefore, we foresee the option that you can add multiple devices on one web page. So you see the web page remains the same, so they don't have to change. We just add it automatically. And this is done in the IP settings page of the device, where you go to additional host. Basically, you just add the IP address of the second HDMI streamer. You add it in there, and automatically this will be added. So it's a very useful way of combining multiple units on a single web page. And of course, if you want to share the web page with your guests or whoever, the QR code can be very useful. For instance, this is the example of the link to YouTube. It's of course, if you have to enter this manually in your web browser, it's very annoying. So you can just create a QR code. So there are many websites to do this. Like this one is the QR code-generator.com, but there are many others. So if you enter your link, could be a YouTube link, can be the local links, any URL link there, and it will create like a QR code. And then, for instance, you can make like a piece of paper where you say for more information or for the video or whatever, and people can just take their phone, tablet, scan it, and automatically they will be redirected to the link. So that's a very useful way of sharing the link to the HDMI streamer or to the content. So this brings us at the live demo. Let me take a minute. So this is the setup that we have, or that we have here in our office. So we have two HDMI streamers. One is connected to a laptop which runs digital signer software on it. Another one is connected to a media player. Both are connected to a wireless router, which is connected to the internet. And we use port forwarding to make the content available on the internet. So you can watch these two devices on the internet through a web browser or through VLC, IPTV, or YouTube. Okay, ignore. So this is the link which will bring me to one of the main page. So you can see here we have the two players. So I can press on it and it plays my video. So this is a Italian channel. Doesn't matter, you can connect any device to it. Or I can go back and I go to my second player, which is my digital signage player. Basically, this is a PC, which is connected to the second streamer. We can also watch the content in VLC. So let me go back. No, not this one. So I go to VLC. So I will just show you. So you go to media, you go to open network stream, of course, and you just copy the link in there. It's already here, and you press play, and you see it plays you the same video. I can go maybe to the digital signage one. This is this one. And this one plays the digital signage video in my VLC. My colleague is bothering me. So this is a very easy way to watch the video also in VLC. So let's go back to the presentation. And of course, you can also watch it on YouTube. So I just create a link, and I think it's also the digital signage player which is connected to it. Yeah. So let me press play. So you see it's a live stream. We can see it's live, and this is again my PC with my digital signage video, which is playing on there. So basically, everybody who would browse or search on YouTube to our page will see this footage. So this brings us to the end of my presentation. Thanks everybody for joining. I hope it was useful and interesting. You will get a recording of this session afterwards, so you can always look back. And as I said, if you have any questions, feel free to contact us. So thank you to everybody and have a nice day. Bye-bye.